I would like to talk to you about the role of a special educator and responsibilities of them. They are a case manager and teacher to a student who has an IEP, which is an individual education plan. We meet as a team to discuss this as annually to go over their goals and supplementary aids and services, accommodations to make sure they are current for what the student needs on their level. We also modify the curriculum to their individual needs throughout the year. For legal responsibilities, special educators are responsible for completing documents within a given time by federal and state laws that are held legally. We need to make sure they are followed in order to make sure they are in compliance with the student and ensure that all the supports and services are being made and are available to the student to keep in compliance. We also have some ethical responsibility to ensure that our students' information is confidentiality, respecting their the potential of each student has to learn. We collaborate with general education teachers, service providers in the building to ensure that we can make sure everyone has supports that are needed. We should also work with speech language in order to share strategies, ensure students are being met in all the areas, along with OT. For example, if you have a student that may not be able to write yet, the OT person, maybe your OT in your school building would be able to come in, help you out, tell you what would be the best way. Maybe writing itself is not what that student is capable of doing. They may be able to use stamps, they may be able to use typing, they may be able to use text to speech, which would all be listed on their current IEP, or when their next annual meeting comes up, you would discuss those too. For advocacy, we are to advocate for our students within the building to ensure they are being provided with equitable access to all learning opportunities. We're there to make sure they get what they need as a result of it. As a teacher in the classroom, my personal vision is to make sure I meet the needs of each and every one of my students. In the process of doing that, I must work with my paraeducator and any adults that may be in the room to support my students to make sure they are understanding what accommodation services that individual has. I need to show that I have empathy towards my students, making sure that their best interest is in my hands to make them successful in the class. The learning needs of my students depend and vary very differently. I have some students in my self-contained classroom that may be pushed out into the general ed for some areas, such as maybe phonics or reading or even math, and find ways to work with those students or work with the general education population with a self-contained classroom to make sure that we are including them as much as possible in life skills and play. Some traits that you need as a special educator or as myself is making sure you're there, opening a welcoming classroom to the student. You want them to have a positive, safe environment, and you want to keep the mood in the classroom very calm, not too much thing to over stimulate the individuals in the room. I believe that I need to be caring. Getting to know my students is one of the biggest things you need to do. You need to know their interests, their likes. You get to know what they do like, what they don't like, what sensory things might work for them, what sensory things may not work for them. Um, in my journey of special ed, I started as just an inclusion teacher, moved to self-contained, and had to take on a lot of different responsibility then. In inclusion, we modified, but they were in inclusion and would just have pull-out services or push in where you're helping in the classroom. And you would modify the work to their needs, but in the self-contained classroom, I modify them significantly more for those students because they have severe cognitive disabilities that enable them to do the same tasks as the general education. So they are quite modified, and we are aligned with the Common Core standards, just highly modified. And every day as I continue on in my job of a special educator is learning the new tricks and trades in the field, making sure I'm staying up to date and going to the professional developments that are offered for us as special educators with new upcoming laws, making sure that we are staying in compliance with our students. Just for example, we just had to change from doing an alt assessment tool to something that is called the Appendix A. So it's still getting new and used to, and it does make a difference in whether a student qualifies for special ed services or not. I hope you enjoyed this video.